Tell me how I'm supposed to breathe, no air. Rihanna probably asked Chris Brown as he was choking her out in his car. Chris Breezy in the news again, right? I wasn't going to talk about this, but the Game's response to a TMZ reporter asking him his opinion on Justin Bieber posting this fuck shit about Chris Brown being the combination of Michael Jackson and Tupac. Yes, Justin Bieber said that. Hip-hop commentary connoisseur. And it made me make this video because I didn't understand Chris Brown's response to CHVRCHES, a Scottish band who was criticizing MARSHMELLO for working with him and Tyga on a recent collab track that was trash anyway, when he has bigger artists endorsing him on a very regular basis. But before we get to that, a brief summary of Chris Brown's recent 10 years in the music industry, aside from him being an amazing talent musically and a great dancer, because I do think the dude is insanely talented as a singer. For all you Chris Brown fanatics out there, let me first hit you with some facts, right? Chris Brown in 2009 was accused, charged, and convicted of assault against his girlfriend Rihanna. And I just found out Rihanna's real name is Robin. She looks just like a Robin, too. She got like 10 times more attractive when I found out her name is Robin. My third girlfriend's name was Robin. She was Mexican. And I assume that's what most people are referring to when they say things like Chris Brown should be able to live in peace after he served his time. Regardless of how you feel about Chris Brown, he did do the crime and he did do the time. Whether or not you feel like he got the right amount of time and the right amount of service for whatever it was that he did to Rihanna, the fact remains that he did still serve his punishment. The one that was thrown at him, he served it, and now he's done. But the behavior to that degree doesn't end there. And I think that's what people like, CHVRCHES are referencing. You can't forget 4 years ago in this iconic photo, Chris Brown was literally posted up on his girlfriend. At the time, ex, I believe, but didn't want to accept it yet. Keep in mind, that should happen late 2015, early 2016, something like that. 6 to 7 years after the Rihanna incident. Okay, so that's a big space in between that time where a lot of people say he's a changed man, and then way later, he's exhibiting the same behavior. Now, I'm no one to judge, I'm not the person that's going to sit up here and try to throw everyone's past in their face. I'm only making this video as an advocate to freedom of association, because I think churches should be allowed to say they don't want to work with Chris Brown, or they feel like people who do work with Chris Brown should quote unquote be looked at a certain way, or as if they advocate for that behavior because they work with him. I feel like churches should be allowed to say that. The problem Chris Brown has right now isn't that people are taking a mistake that he made 10 years ago and using it as to why they don't want to work with him now. The problem with Chris Brown is that he's exhibited those similar behaviors of that conviction 10 years ago, even up until recent years. So it makes people in the music industry not want to work with you, because they know that you're probably still exhibiting that same behavior, and they have recent examples of such. It doesn't make anything any better when Chris Brown responds to them by saying that he wants them to get hit by a bus full of mental patients, as if the people inside the bus change the damage it would do to the people outside of the bus. Why they had to be mental patients, I don't know. You might think I have an issue about his response to them because he mentioned mental patients, or because he said that he wants them to, some physical violence or harm to come to them because they expressed their distaste in Chris Brown. I don't actually have an issue with that. I mean, I do, but that's not the main focus here. My actual issue with that is that's another example of how Chris Brown is just unappreciative of his position. With the support of artists like The Game, Justin Bieber, Drake, and many others, it's hard to believe the opinion, at least in the majority sense of the word, is ever going to change regarding Chris Brown. Chris Brown is still in the positive with the majority, regardless of his past. So all of his fanatics out there don't need to mind the opinion of churches, because their opinion is in the minority. Not to say that their opinion is wrong because it's in the minority, but just to say that Chris Brown is looking at this as if he should receive no flack for what he did or recent examples of his abusive behavior because he's Chris Brown. You would like to think that someone who looks at themselves in a realistic way would be able to look at church's comments and say, well, I don't like what they're saying, but for me to respond with any kind of negativity is just gonna add to their point, so I'm just gonna shut the fuck up. But no, dude does the exact opposite, and not only does he double down in his want to have physical violence happen to someone, he then proceeds to use the "I'm black and I'm proud" excuse as if they were saying that you shouldn't be in the position that you're in right now because you're black. No, they were saying that you shouldn't be worked with because of this. And if having that kind of behavior as an example of someone makes you uncomfortable or a little shaky, and it's been done recently, then I just don't see an issue. And Chris Brown, unfortunately, doesn't just have examples of being abusive and violent with women. He also has examples of being violent publicly with other men in the industry. Frank Ocean wanting to beat the shit out of Soulja Boy, even though that whole thing was probably fake. Back and forths with Drake, photography incident. Like, it's kind of ongoing, you know what I mean? But as I said before, Chris Brown's lack of appreciation for being in the position that he's in, despite all this violent behavior, is where I feel like he's wrong. I've told you guys before that the music industry tends to move like the Catholic Church, and I'm always going to feel that way when there are people like Chris Brown that are still at the top. Not to say that the music industry should be pushing the morality of the people listening to said music, because they can prioritize business as much as they want. I just think people who have done the crime should be more appreciative, like Chris Brown, and say, you know what, if you got that critique for me being a violent person, I'll take that. I'm making my money over here though, but I'll take that. You've got bands and groups like churches who are in the minority, who also don't even make music in the same vein as you, expressing the opinion that they don't want other people like EDM guys like MARSHMELLO working with you. But you have people like Justin Bieber, who may be the biggest artist in the world right now, people like Drake, who may transcend an entire genre of music, and people like Game, who are in the nook and grime of the street, kind of like, that support you. I don't get why you aren't just looking at that as a blessing and saying, holy shit, I am so thankful that people that are this huge still don't have a problem with me. That's what I think guys like Chris Brown should be more thankful for. Instead, he uses that as an opportunity to respond to the rightful concern of others. But in his defense, to this degree, I don't agree with churches publicly coming out and saying that they don't want other people working with Chris Brown, because let's see that the music industry is like a job, and Chris Brown's real name is like, I don't know, Bill O'Reilly. Jesus. Okay, Bill O'Reilly, he goes to a job interview. The guy who looks at Bill O'Reilly and goes over his credentials say, you're looking pretty good. Oh, except we looked at your criminal history and you've got a history of drug use on the job. And they say, oh, I don't think we can hire you based on that. And he says, all right, see you later. They say, all right, see you later. That job that interviewed him most likely isn't going to go on social media and say, this is why we didn't hire Bill O'Reilly. That's information that you can keep on the inside, because there are other companies out there that I'm sure might work for somebody that has a history of drug use if it suits their interests. That's not to say that his history doesn't indicate very bad behavior, but it's to say that you aren't the person to say whether or not people in the future are going to work with this individual when everyone has access to the exact same information that's been available for the past decade. You saying that Chris Brown is a kind of a violent person doesn't change the fact that everybody else probably already knows that who currently works with him. And to publicly state that opinion is a little odd to me, at least from a professional standpoint. But that's all I really got to say. Chris Brown, I don't know what's wrong with dude. Game came out and said that fuck anybody who mentions Chris Brown in a negative light. I don't really know if I can trust Game's opinion on that, because this dude just lost a sexual assault case. What the fuck is going on in the rap game right now?